The late-night hum of General Hospital felt louder than usual, as if the walls themselves were holding their breath. Jason Morgan moved through the corridor with quiet precision, his footsteps barely echoing against the polished floors. He wasn't supposed to be here, not like this, but instinct told him something was wrong, and Jason had learned long ago that ignoring instinct came at a cost. At the end of the hall, Britt Westbourne's office light was still on. That alone was strange. Britt had been pushing herself too hard lately, long hours, sharp moods, disappearing without explanation. Jason had noticed the tremor in her hands, the way she sometimes seemed lost in thought, like she was bracing for something terrible. When he'd asked her directly, she'd brushed him off with her usual sarcasm, too quickly, too carefully. Tonight, Jason intended to stop guessing. He paused outside her office door, listening. Silence. After a moment, he slipped inside. The room was neat to the point of obsession. Britt's desk was clear, her files perfectly aligned, but Jason's eyes went straight to her bag, resting against the chair. He hated himself for what he was about to do, but if Britt was in danger, he needed answers. He opened the bag and found a small prescription bottle. His jaw tightened. Jason wasn't a doctor, but he knew enough to recognize the name of the medication and what it was often associated with. His mind raced. Britt had been acting like someone who believed her future was already written, someone who thought time was running out. Carefully, Jason slipped the bottle into his pocket. An hour later, he stood in a quiet consultation room with someone he trusted, someone who owed him a favor. The file sat open on the table between them, medical terminology highlighted and annotated. "She's been misdiagnosed," the doctor said quietly. "The genetic marker everyone feared, it's not there." Jason froze. "You're sure?" "I triple-checked. The original test was flawed. Britt Westbourne does not have Huntington's." The words hit him harder than a bullet ever had. Relief surged through him, sharp and overwhelming, but it was quickly followed by anger. Britt had been living under a death sentence that was never real. She had changed her entire life based on a lie, and she didn't know the truth yet. Jason returned the medication before dawn, slipping it back into Britt's bag exactly where he'd found it. He didn't wake her, even though she was asleep in the on-call room, curled in on herself like someone carrying a heavy secret. She deserved to hear this face to face. Later that day, Britt stormed into the hospital courtyard, her phone clenched in her hand. "You went through my things," she snapped, eyes blazing as she confronted Jason. Jason didn't deny it. "Yes." "How dare you?" she shot back. "That was private." "I know," he said evenly, "but I had to be sure." "Sure of what?" Britt laughed bitterly. "Congratulations, you cracked the case." Jason stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Britt, you're not sick." Her smile faltered. "Don't do that. Don't give me false hope." "I'm not," he said. "Your diagnosis was wrong. You don't have Huntington's." The world seemed to tilt. Britt stared at him, searching his face for any sign of cruelty, any hint that this was a mistake, or worse, a lie. "That's not funny," she whispered. "I would never joke about this." Her breath caught. "I've made decisions," she said shakily. "I pushed people away. I gave up things because I thought I didn't have time." Jason's voice softened. "You have time, a future, all of it." For a long moment, Britt said nothing. Then her knees buckled, and Jason caught her before she hit the ground. She cried then, not out of fear, but out of release. Years of anger, guilt, and resignation poured out in silent sobs as Jason held her, steady and unyielding. "I thought I was disappearing," she admitted. "I thought that was my destiny." "It's not," Jason said firmly. "You get to choose what happens next." As Britt pulled herself together, something inside her shifted. The sharp edges softened. The walls she'd built so carefully, so painfully, began to crack. Later, as she stood alone on the hospital balcony, Britt looked out over Port Charles with new eyes. The city hadn't changed, but she had. The future was suddenly wide open, terrifying and beautiful all at once. Jason watched from a distance, knowing he'd crossed a line, but also knowing he'd done the right thing, because sometimes stealing the truth was the only way to save someone's life. And in Port Charles, the biggest twists didn't come from fate, they came from second chances.